Welcome to Sisters in Arms, a firearm story. I'm Kerrie Ann Auclair, and this is where we empower minds through education and advocacy and true stories. Let's get started. So today's show is actually a two-part series, so it's 59, episode 59 and 60, and we're talking to a bunch of ladies from Women for Gun Rights. We did an amazing trip just recently, and we're going to talk about that and talk about how important it is to be part of the Women for Gun Rights and how important it is to advocate for our Second Amendment, our civil rights. Let's get started.
Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad that you're here with me today, and we have a lot of exciting things to talk about. So we're going to dive into this because we have a two-part series. So we're going to talk about the DC trip, what it meant for us, everything we did, and all the hard work that went into a trip like this. It's amazing. So I'm just going to let you guys start it off. And Cheryl, since you've been part of the DC project probably, or the Women for Gun Rights the longest, would you take the honor and explain what the Women for Gun Rights is and how this all became?
Absolutely. So we are coming up into our 10th year. 2026 will be our 10th year. Our founder, Diana Muller, had this amazing idea to originally, when we were the DC Project, to bring one woman from each state to form relationships with our elected officials. What an amazing idea. Why don't we even think to do that these days? We treat our elected officials like they're celebrities and out there somewhere rather than, human beings who put their pants on the same way we do every day. That then became over the years Women for Gun Rights. We did rebrand a few years ago. Our main mission is to form groups of women in every single state rather than just one woman from each state. I am the Arizona State Director, so I have formed a team of women, a bunch of members that come together, and we go to our state legislature and do the exact same thing. But our main mission is to help convey the message that it's education that's the key to safety, not more and more legislation all the time. We show up in our beautiful teal t-shirts to distinguish ourselves and be the counter visual and the counter message to this group out there that shows up in massive droves, somehow magically, with tons and tons of financing behind them. They're called the moms who demand action.
I
right?
call mom.
Well, I'm a mom. Right? Exactly. I'm a mom, a wife, a grandma, and they don't speak for me. So we want to be that counter visual and that counter voice that we say that the best way to keep our families safe is through education and through the freedom to choose whatever tool we believe is the best one to keep our families safe.
I love it. So Cheryl, you are Cheryl Todd, and you are the state director for Women for Gun Rights for Arizona. So thank you so much for that intro. I appreciate that, because not very many people know who we are and the hard work that goes into it, and how many ladies are really truly with the boots on the ground, or the heels on the ground, so to speak, and working in their own states. So thank you for that. I'm just going to go kind of around the table because this is exciting. So let's start with Gabby. I'm going to start with you next. So I know you've been part of Women for Gun Rights as well for a while, and you are not necessarily the state director per se, correct? But you have amazing titles behind your name, and how exciting that is. So you are a firearm instructor, and you also was in the Olympia, and you were the Olympics, excuse me. So can you kind of chat about that and what led you to be part of the DC project? Because I don't know if I've ever asked you that question.
Yes, so I was born and raised in Venezuela. I lived there for 21 years, participated in the Olympic Games since 2000 in air pistol and sport pistol shooting. I did that for about 10 years, and then all the turmoil in Venezuela led me to move to the United States. And I was thankful with a lawyer who advised me correctly, and I was able to apply for an extraordinary ability visa. And lo and behold, in a year, I had my green card. So that just being here in the United States and everything happened so fast, I was like, okay, now I can actually continue my sport, can practice Olympic shooting. That's what I thought. But then I learned that Olympic shooting is not necessarily something that you're gonna find on every shooting range here in the United States. And visiting some ranges, trying to find that, I found a pamphlet talking about the Second Amendment. That's when I learned for the first time, because nobody tells you about the Second Amendment when you
Right.
just immigrant to the United States. And I'm reading about this, what is this Second Amendment thing? And I'm like, man, this is brilliant. Like, I wish family and friends in Venezuela would have that. I wish people in Colombia would have that, because then we wouldn't be at the mercy of, the cartels, the criminals. I mean, they're brutal. They're brutal people, animals, I will call them, and the way they treat their own, citizens, their own people who live among them. And years pass, and my story is kind of long, too long to explain it in a short time. But I have met Di for several years through the shooting sports and competitive shooting. And one day she said, Gabby, would you come here to DC and do this? I was 7 months pregnant.
Oh, that's right. We were talking
Yes,
about
and
that.
I'm petite. For those of you who don't know me, I'm tiny. I'm not only tiny in stature, but tiny. So, and I was huge. I was
Oh my
this
God.
big 7 month pregnant woman, and I said, I'll be there. And it was one of the most, I don't know, it was, I'm gonna say, life-changing experience, but one of those experiences that you are like, wow, I'm here. And I'm gonna tell you why it was so impactful for me coming from another country, Venezuela. That would never happen. Okay, you would never have access to any politician. You would never even imagine, just knocking at the door, or just even knocking at the door, say, "Hey, I'm here. Let me talk to you. Let me drop off a business card." That would never in a million years happen. And then when I had that experience, I was like, whoa, like my brain exploded. And I think that's the part that most people take for granted here in the United States, that you can actually call them, you can actually talk to them, but people don't do it. While in other countries, we don't even have the access, the opportunity. So the organization, I believe, of what the mission, not only for the Second Amendment, but also keeping our representative or senators accountable for that, for abiding for their oath and protecting our rights and everything. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I love hearing the stories. You know, there's so many of us that was at the DC trip. I just wish that we had time to really, really sit down and have a whole day of just networking with each other and getting to know
Yeah.
each other. And that would be amazing, because we all have so many stories and so much to put into this in our own states and within the organization itself. So thank you. So I'm actually going to go to Kate next, because this kind of leads into Kate. Now you're from New Hampshire, and you're fairly new. You're also the new state director, or the national director for the Northeast region, correct? So yay! Welcome. But
Thank
if you
you.
could just tell us a little bit about your story, and again, you're from Australia, correct? And
Mhm.
what led you here, and how did you find the DC project? Because that's another story we need to hear.
Well, the DC project actually found me. So I immigrated here from Australia in 2018. I married a chap that was actually from Louisiana. So we lived in New Orleans for 2 years, and his work brought him up to New Hampshire. And there are a lot of guns in the house. We're a law enforcement family. And so we have a big black safe that, coming from Australia, where you don't have access to guns anymore, I was just absolutely floored by how cool that safe was, full of rifles, handguns, shotguns, ammo. So I approached shooting with no fear. I was just curious. It was a lot of fun. And it wasn't until about 2023 that I really started intentionally sort of looking into becoming my own first responder. My husband was working really long hours. We were living in, I mean, New Hampshire's a beautiful place, but we were in a downtown in one of the cities where there was some sort of like drug problems and sort of like halfway houses and things like that. And it was just a very good opportunity to learn how to take that power back for myself and not rely on someone else to keep me safe. And so I found a women's shooting league and became part of that and made some wonderful friends. And through that, I was approached by a prominent shooter here in New Hampshire that didn't want to take on any political work and asked, you have an interesting voice. Would you like to do this? And so I said, I didn't even think about it that long, because the 2A community has, even in a short amount of time, like only being in it for a year, has given me so much and really, really helped me develop as a person and as a new citizen as well. I felt like this is a great way to not only give back to my community, but give back to my new country. So it was with pleasure that I took on that state director role. And, it was with trepidation that I took on the Northeast director role. That's just very recent, but I think I have a home here, and it feels really good to be a part of.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel as though that I found a family.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
I know, like 10 years ago when I first started this journey, I really was kind of lost. I didn't really know which direction to go. I didn't know, how to, like, when someone said 2A, I didn't even understand what that meant. I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea how to find my legislators. I didn't know the walk. I didn't understand the talk. And being part of the DC project, formerly known Women for Gun Rights Now, I found that women embrace each other and help each other through this journey. And every single person has a why story, and every single person has a very special, unique gift that they add to that table when we're doing our meetings. And I was fortunate to my first time leading a team, and I was so honored to do it. It really did mean a lot to me. And I get emotional by talking about it, because it's so empowering to be able to be in front of these women that are so powerful with their voices, and you learn so much from them. So, thank you for telling us your story. And I think you might have froze up. I'm not sure, but
Let me see if I can fix that.
Okay.
If I disappear, forgive me. I will come back as soon as I can. So I'm going to have to press a few buttons.
Okay. All right. And Andee, from Maine, my state director from Maine. So I know that, your state has a lot going on right now, but I just want to ask you, talking about the trip, what did it mean to you? Because I know we met each other. This is your probably third trip? I believe. Second trip. Okay. And I know you and I were in the team together the first time, and it was absolutely amazing. We got to really get to know each other. And it was kind of like my second trip, your first trip. And it was a little intimidating, I think, for people that are walking through these halls for the first time, sitting in front of these politicians and lawmakers, right? What did that mean to you, and how did you feel going into it for the first time, and how did you feel the second time, this last trip?
It was a little surreal the first time. I'm very active in Maine. I'm at our state house probably more than some of the people who actually get paid to be there. But to be in DC and do that and represent all the women behind me in Maine. I go for survivors of abuse. I go for survivors of trafficking. I'm their voice because they can't be there. So it's a huge honor for me to even step foot in there to represent those women. And then just to have the opportunities that there are in DC. For some reason, some of the people that won't see me in Maine give me at least a little bit of time in DC.
Awesome.
And I guess that means, maybe they see that we're putting in a huge effort just to be heard. And I appreciate those that actually let us come into their offices and speak to them, even if it's just somebody who works for them. Just to be able to have those meetings is really important. And, as Gabby said, it's like an honor. Like I get to do this. I get to have a voice here. And that's why we love America, right? Because we have a voice still.
Yeah, and I think it's really great too because I found this is my third trip to DC, but I found that every single time I sit down at the table with a different state, and like you were Maine and I'm Massachusetts, and every time we sit down with a different state, I feel like I learned so much. Not just because I'm sitting down here and listening to how everybody has a story or a piece to tell that politician or whatever it may be. I find that we realize that we're not alone in this. And some of these politicians that we sit with are friendlies and some of them are not friendlies. And meaning that some of them are for us, they're with us, they want to fight for us, and other people, nope, not so much. And my state is not so much. So it kind of gives you a different perspective of sitting down in front of the table and how to handle that situation, how to handle non-friendlies, how to handle friendlies. But I also realized that we're not alone and we help each other. And it was so amazing for me anyways, to see everybody's why story and everybody brightens up and livens up and they're so excited to tell that story to them or explain why this certain bill means so much to them. And we have each other's backs. I don't know how you felt, but that's how I felt.
Absolutely. And I also feel like we break up the narrative because a lot of the unfriendlies want to believe that the only people fighting for their gun rights are angry white men with beards and NRA hats. And when we walk in dressed up and we're all nice and prim and proper, they don't really know where to put us. And I love that. It's fun.
Absolutely love it. And we're all different, like sizes and short and tall, and all these women are coming in and like, hey, we like guns. And we have a right to have one. So there. But Kate, I want to go back to you. So glad you're unfrozen. Because when we sat with the first meeting we had, I'm going to stop laughing. Oh my God. The first meeting we had, I loved it because Kate got so excited that she ended up calling him dude. Can you tell us what happened at that very moment? Because it was amazing. And
It was funny.
funny, and he laughed, and it was something that he probably won't forget, which is great. So yeah, if you don't mind telling us that story.
Not at all. So this trip was my very first DC trip, and I didn't really know. I had some meetings set up with senators, but just seeing their staffers. And so the first one was with Maggie Hassan's legal advisor, Joe Gookin, who I didn't know that much about. I did actually do a little bit of research, and I found out that he was part of the National Guard and saw a little bit of his background, that he did a lot of work in New York State. And so I was really happy where one of our other sisters from New York, Lauren Harnett there, she was able to really talk with him about that. But I was very frank to begin with. I just said, so this is the first time I've ever sat down in an office and done something like this. And he was very open to hearing what we had to say, but I was still trying to be all professional, right? And just, friendly, but professional. And partway through our conversation, he started telling a story about himself, about how he's part of the National Guard for, 20 odd years. And when he started like courting his now wife, he took her up to the Poconos and actually introduced her to rifle. So she'd grown up in California, never shot a gun. And so I'm like, oh my God, here we've got some real life happening right now. Mm-hmm. And when he said that she enjoyed it, something in me just went, I don't know, something in me just broke. And I was just like, dude, you got to get her into, like this women's shooting club kind of thing, because it was so exciting to hear that, going into these meetings, so it became the dude
meeting. Yeah.
So going into these meetings, I just had this idea of these were unfriendlies. These were people who were, we had to really try and work around to get our point across. And yet here we were talking about his wife learning how to shoot.
Yeah.
And it just became a really natural conversation after that. And I thought it was a lovely moment of connection. And I think we went on to have quite a few other really human conversations in our meetings. I think our group was really fortunate like that.
Oh yeah, we did. And I think that's so great because we go in with this anticipation, especially when we know it's non-friendly and we already have this mindset. But I think being in this group, and maybe Cheryl can speak to this as well, because we go into this thinking, I got a friendly, I got a non-friendly, and we already have this mindset. But when we go into it as a group, we talk prior to it. We have a conversation. We lead our team. We have a moment. We're going to go into this with a positive attitude, and we're going to find a connection. So Cheryl, I know you've been doing this a lot longer than all of us. Can you kind of talk upon that a bit about how we go into it, non-friendly and friendly? I know you have a lot of friendlies, so thank God for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So it is an interesting mindset going into the two different categories, should we say, which is really, it is kind of, crazy to think that something that's in our Bill of Rights that is written for every single citizen of this country, there isn't a right-leaning conservative Republican Bill of Rights and then a left-leaning Democratic Bill of Rights. It's all for us. So it's odd that just because somebody ascribes to Republican or Democrat that we automatically have an idea that they lean a certain way. But we also know that there are some Republicans that have gotten a little squishy on the whole idea. So even if somebody's a friendly office, there are, certain nuances and strategies that we do need to go in with. If, like, let's say Andee Biggs here in Arizona, he has proven himself time and again that he is staunchly pro freedom, pro Bill of Rights, so therefore pro what we do. Going into his office, sometimes I feel like I'm wondering if I'm wasting his time because we are already simpatico, right? Other than going in and sort of, giving each other a verbal high five for the work we're doing, there's not a lot that needs to be done in that arena other than the relationship building, which is very important. Showing him that we've got his back. We are supporting him because he's taken slings and arrows all the time from like the Moms Demand Action people and that sort of thing. But then you go into an unfriendly office here in Arizona. I also have Mark Kelly as one of my senators. His wife is Gabby Giffords. She heads up an organization called Giffords, and it is very much an anti-gun organization. So it almost seems like that would be a conflict of interest for him to even have served, as a senator, because do I really think that my voice is being heard and represented? Because we have a representative government. I really don't. However, I will say this, that Mark Kelly's office has met with us now twice, and this most recent trip was one of them. And we meet with the staffers. Like if I go to an Andee Biggs office or a representative Eli Crane or my own representative Paul Gosar, the representative himself usually sits down and meets with us. In some of these other offices, it's usually a staff member. And in Mark Kelly's office, that was the case. That is actually a strength for us. Because I can never imagine that the man married to Gabby Giffords, who heads up Giffords, I'm ever going to actually cause him cognitive dissonance. But with a staff member, this is a human being with their own personal life. They're going to go home and have conversations around dinner tables. And they're going to say things like, yeah, I met with this group of ladies and maybe I thought it was going to be contentious, or maybe I had a preconceived notion about who these women were and what they were going to say to me. And if if we can create that cognitive dissonance and show them our humanity, show them the places that we agree, that is so powerful. And so I will say that their office, they have their staff highly trained. They are so courteous, so professional. There wasn't a hint of any animosity while we were in the room. Now, I don't know what they said and did once we walked out, but I will say that they allowed me to feel heard. And I began with, we have so much we can agree on. To Kate's, right, dude meeting, to Kate's point, if we can find those places that we have agreement, and where I open in that office is, we all want to protect what we love. Right? That's indisputable. It is our therefore that we go off in different directions. We believe that therefore education, right, is the key to safety. We believe that we should have the full freedom to have whatever tool we need to protect our families. And the other side tends to think the only way to be safe is with the absence of this particular tool.
Right.
We can have conversations around that. And that is what we did. And I was very proud of that. I came away feeling better for having difficult conversations and having done it in a respectful manner.
I love it. I love it. We got about 1 minute. And before I go to the next episode, I just want to really quickly, like a couple seconds with each one of you, what really stuck out with you emotionally for this trip. I'll start with Andee.
I think what stuck out for me would just be the amount of people who are just willing to help in DC. Like that was surprising to me. I know that doesn't really relate to our gun rights, but it was like everywhere we went, there was somebody's assistant who was willing to show us where to go and what to do. And I think that really meant a lot to me because I was always afraid I was going to get lost. And so just being able to not be afraid to ask people for directions and stuff was really great. But our team was also so helpful. Like everybody on our teams supporting each other, even if it was just at lunchtime going, hey, we're going to go see this person and we know that they're voting for this rule or this law. What should we do? What should we say to him? And just, supporting each other was so nice because I'm used to being one of the only women. And so having a huge team of women was awesome.
Well, thank you. And I'm actually out of time, but we have another episode coming. So I'm going to start with you next, Gabby, and we can kind of chat to really what our takeaways was with this trip. So thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned. We got another episode to come.
Thank you so much for watching Sisters in Arms, a Firearm Story, and watching the amazing stories of all the ladies that are parts of such an amazing organization. We had some great voices today, and I'm so glad you joined us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please email me at sistersinarms2022@gmail.com. Until then, stay safe, keep vigilant. See you next time.